So I used to think that this is the only way that I could do a proper dance practice, but I'd like to show you something different. So, welcome. My name's Harmony Lee. I am honored to be your gay dance teacher, and today we're going to talk about practicing. I've created a 5-step dance practice that can be adaptable for those of us who are returning to dance, those of us who've taken a break, and those of us who maybe have never tried moving expressively before. So this is very gentle, very accessible, and it's oriented for us to have some fun. So I'd like to walk you through the steps and we can dance together. I'll be showing you snippets of my practice, my personal practice today. And I think I should start by saying I started learning dance as an adult. I'm a late bloomer in the dance world. So at the ripe old age of 29, I took my first ballet class and I loved it, but it's an art form that doesn't particularly love all parts of me. So as a trans and non-binary person, sometimes going to dance classes can feel a little like I have to pick a side. And I really prefer home practice and private freestyle practice because it gives me more expressiveness to learn my own range of motion and my own body language. So because I started learning late in life, there's this mystique that as a dancer, it has started as an infant, like dancing out of the womb, or you're not a dancer. That's not true. Because dance is just body language. And just like any other language, we acquire it rather than learn, right? So I want to talk about dance as an acquisition, dance skills being acquired through movement rather than I have to learn these formal steps. So here's what I did to help put body language into my own body language. And I looked at kids. I looked at how babies learn how to talk or sign, because the way that children acquire languages also follows the same format. So the first step is observe. When babies are pre-verbal or pre-sign, they just observe. They observe the types of hand gestures, facial features, sounds, and they don't talk back, they don't sign back, but they're observing. So we do the same thing. We observe our body. Today, I'm scanning through my body and I'm observing I have some pain in my hip, right? I'm a person who has chronic pain. I have pain most days of the week, and I have particular pain in my hip, in the right side of my foot today, and I have chronic pain in my neck. Some of these pains are from injury. Some of these pains are from trauma and emotional pain and stress. So I'm just aware that I have some pain in my body, so I'm gonna be really gentle. When we're observing, this is also where we start asking our bodies for consent to move, right? So for a lot of us, we know what it feels like to have our consent violated. We know what it feels like to be pushing ourselves beyond what we should be doing because we feel like we should keep pushing, right? We feel like we need to show our strength by enduring a lot of pain. And that's not great for our bodies. Our bodies deserve to be cared for. They deserve to move on their own terms. So this is a time where we can kind of check in and get our own consent to move our bodies freely. So I'm asking my hips, are we okay with moving? Maybe I'm going to take a few variations seated today. I think that will feel good. But you can ask yourself these same questions. Observe. Step 2. Now we get into babbling. So when babies just start to babble, they just mimic and create sounds. They don't make sense, but they babble. Babble is an essential part of learning and acquiring a language as a child. If we skip this babbling step, there is no language acquisition after. We have to babble. And babbling and body language, it doesn't look cool. We're not doing this to get cool points of like, wow, TikTok dance looks amazing because I'm babbling with my body. No, don't try to look cool. Don't do this for TikTok. Do it for yourself. Do it for you. But when we have this intention in the first song, we're just going to babble. We're going to let our bodies babble the way it wants to babble, and we're not going to judge ourselves. That's the key part here. We're establishing non-judgment. So if you even want to project a little image of yourself as a baby, like an itty bitty baby, and you're learning just barely how to like make sounds or move your hands or like kind of start engaging with the world, that's what we're doing right now. So we're keeping that same lens of non-judgment towards ourselves. So step 3, now that we've gotten through BABBLE, we're maybe feeling a little bit more embodied because we are moving. Now we can play. Play is a huge part of the ways that children learn, right? Play is what teaches us how to make mistakes, how to take risks, how to learn from what we've done, how to create self-trust, how to learn what our own values, our own voice, our own ways of communicating with the world might be. And it's playful. So in the next practice part, we're going to play with our movement. We're going to explore something playful. Again, not cool. We're not being cool today. If you came here for a tutorial to help you look really cool when you're like dancing outside, I'm not the one. I'm not the one. But we are going to be playful. And you might actually look really cool because here's an inside tip. The less you try to be cool, the cooler you look. So if you really want to focus in on cultivating playfulness, on cultivating your authentic sense of play, you'll probably actually look pretty cool. So, but that's not the intention. The intention is to play. And while we're playing, we're working on our self-talk. So here's another dancer tip. I'm just gonna drop some gems here. This is the number 1 tip absolutely every dancer needs. The one trait that I wish every dancer knew, the one skill, is positive self-talk. I wish all dancers knew how to talk to ourselves positively. I struggled so much with positive self-talk. Like growing up, I had a really terrible eating disorder. In high school, I had really bad body dysmorphia. I didn't know the words for trans and non-binary back then. I just hated my body. And moving felt like I was like not actually experiencing anything in my body. I felt like I was kind of watching it and I was like, oh my God, it's awkward. I hate it. It's terrible. And I did terrible things to myself. I tried to control my body. And because all these like oppressive voices just lived rent-free in my brain, telling me all the time that I was ugly, that I was worthless, that I was not worthy of taking up space, that's how I moved, right? And that's what stopped me from moving. Most of my life, I've been afraid to move. Let me know if you relate. I can bet that some of you do. So when we're cultivating positive self-talk, when we are being our own like guardian, when we're being our own support system, that changes everything. I don't know how many talented dancers out there have quit, not because they lack the technique, but because they're destroying themselves up here. And I'll raise my hand. I was one of them. I was one of the best ballet students in my class. And my teachers would point it out, even at like, but I had all this negative self-talk. I'm like, oh, I'm not really that good. I learned this only a few years ago. Like, I don't see what you're seeing. And I would just take myself out of it. I would just count myself out. And that's because of self-talk. So I want you to keep dancing. I want you to enjoy this practice. And that starts with self-talk. So we're going to practice that while we're moving. Okay. And then the next phase, right? We have 5 steps. I'm at 1, 2, 3, 4. Step 4 is communicate. Now that we have gathered the movement together, now we're using body language to tell a story, right? Dance, in many ways, is using your own body language to interpret the music and tell a story. We can babble, we can play, but we can also story tell. So this is, I would say, probably the area that I am really trying to focus on for myself. At my dance journey point right now, I struggle sometimes with specificity, right? Like I get really into the movement and I actually get kind of carried away by the music. I have also a lot of ADHD. By the way, I'm also autistic and neurodivergent. So sometimes when my thoughts get carried away, so do I. And I forget like, wait, I was dancing just now. What was I supposed to do? And then I dissociate. But we don't want to do that. We're trying to find some specificity so we can stay in the moment, so that we can enjoy our movement. And that's what I intend to do today. I have a story that I want to communicate in one of the songs, the pieces that I'm practicing to. And part of what's so empowering about learning to communicate in your own body language is that it liberates us from trying to be like everyone else, right? I'm not trying to dance the way someone else dances because I am me, right? My body language comes from here. I don't know what they're doing. That's not going to look the same on me. But I am trusting and cultivating my own artistic voice and putting things in my own words and not apologizing for it and not thinking, oh, this is right, this is wrong, it's supposed to look like this, that's trash, I shouldn't do that. Like, no, we're just practicing. And by communicating with our body language, we build fluency in language, right? Language acquisition, you remember, this is kind of where we're going. We're trying to become fluent in our body language because I wasn't before, right? When I was growing up, moving expressively was shamed in my family, right? I have a pretty, I'm going to say, rough family dynamic in certain ways. I was outed by my dad and estranged from my family. And for a lot of like LGBT folks, especially for those of us who are trans and non-binary and gay, we don't always get the same support that we deserve, right? I couldn't go home for years, 6 to be exact. I stopped talking to my family, and those relationships just became strained and more distant. And I know that part of the root of this is the fact that we had so much shame around our authentic expressive movement in that household, right? I was not allowed to take up spaces myself, right? I was supposed to be the good daughter. I was supposed to be the responsible one. I was supposed to be the A student. I was supposed to be the indoor kid who never gave my parents problems, right? I was supposed to be all these things, and it stifled my movement. And I was afraid to move. I was in a chronic freeze state. So when my stress response got activated, when I experienced trauma, when I experienced sexual assault, when I experienced consent violations, I only knew one thing, and that was to freeze. And all of this dance, everything I've done in, I'm going to say, my adult life, trying to unlearn this stuckness, to unlearn this programmed, conditioned freeze response for myself, has come through movement. And dance has been the most life-changing way that I've been able to do that, because dance has infinite possibilities. There is no right or wrong way to dance, right? That's a lie that people think is like, oh, I have to dance this certain way or else I'm not a dancer. I have to do this style or else I'm not a dancer. I have to take ballet first or else I'm not a dancer. Bullshit, right? You are a dancer. You are already a dancer because that's what our bodies were made to do. We're made to move. My first ballet teacher, her name is Catherine Ireland. She's an older white lady in, she would hate that I said that. She is an esteemed elder of the white persuasion in San Diego. And she taught me this definition of dance, which I love so much. She was like, dancers, and this is how she talks. Dancers are people who solve problems through movement. If she had a mic, she would drop it there and it would clatter, right? Dancers are people who solve problems through movement. So we're just solving some problems through movement. We're solving the problem of how do I convey this using just my body? We're solving the problem of how do I move my body from one space to another without tripping over myself through movement, right? We're solving the problem of how do I release this emotion from the inside of my body and express it outward through movement. These are all things that we're doing because we're dancers, right? So I hope you'll join me for this practice. I hope you enjoy, and we're going to step through it together. All right, here we go. I just remembered. I said 5 steps, right? I only said 4. The 5th step comes at the end of the practice. And the 5th step might be the most important one for actually creating a sustainable practice. And that's because the 5th step is to be kind to yourself. The The fifth step is to be kind to yourself. After you've completed your practice, what can you do to nourish yourself? What can you do to make yourself feel special, like you accomplished something? So at the end of this practice, I invite you to do something really kind for yourself, to celebrate yourself. You just danced, right? You just moved, you expressed yourself. That is an exciting but also a very vulnerable thing to do. It's a very brave thing to do. So I encourage you, at the end of your practice, always, always, always be kind to yourself. Always. Because so many of us, at the end of practice, we get mean. We look back on the videos that we made and we went, oh my God, I hate it. We look back at that take and we go, it was trash, I need to do it again. We look at our bodies and we start picking ourselves apart, right? We look at the other people in the video and they said, they got it so fast, why didn't I? Right? We compare ourselves, and that comparison steals our joy. So I want us to break that cycle, because it's pretty ingrained in the dance world. It's very part of the culture to have this negative attitude, to have this spiraling low self-worth that comes after we move. And we need to get rid of that, because that actually takes us out of the dance. We're less likely to come back and practice if we remember how much we sat in our car and cried after, right? If we remember how much like our heart hurt, if we remember how much pain we felt. I put my all into this and gosh, I just feel terrible. I can't say one nice thing about me. We aren't going to come back. And if we do come back, we're still holding that. And that's painful. Our bodies hear everything that we say, right? And we want our bodies to hear positive things, kind things, because our bodies do a lot for us. So we extend that gratitude. We extend that self-compassion and kindness at the end of our practice every single time, because that's going to keep us going and keep us dancing. So I'm going to finish warming up. This is warming up for me. And I'll see you on the dance floor.